Hey everybody, Mr. Bucko here with problems 1 through 3 on your Algebra Chapter 8 practice test where we're simplifying some exponents. So number 1 here, we're asked to simplify the expression c to the 5th to the 3rd times c to the negative 4th. The first thing I'm going to do is take care of these parentheses, and I have c to the 5th to the 3rd. So what that means is I have c to the 5th times c to the 5th times c to the 5th. So I have a whole bunch of c's. And I have 3 c's to the 5th, which means I have 5 c's times 5 c's times 5 c's. What that ends up being is c to the 15th. And the shortcut to this is that when you see a power to another power, you multiply these two exponents together to get the 15. 5 times 3 is 15. And then we're going to multiply this by c to the negative 4th. So we have 15 c's times negative 4 c's. That's kind of weird. So we're going to go to the property, product of powers property, that tells us that when we multiply two things together, we're multiplying this by this. When we multiply these two things together and they have the same base, what we do is we add the exponents. So we have c to the 15th times c to the 4th. So we're going to add these two exponents together, and when we add those two exponents together, 15 and negative 4, we get 11. So the simplified version is c to the 11th. Number 2, we have a problem we're going to simplify and rewrite it without negative exponents is what you're asked to do with this thing. And we're going to kind of break this down. We're going to break down exactly what we see here and simplify it piece by piece. So the first thing that I see here is 12 over 4. Well, I know what 12 over 4 is. 12 over 4 is 3. Then we have a to the 4th over a to the 0 power. And we're going to use quotient to powers property here that says if we divide two things that have the same base, we are going to subtract their exponents. So I'm dividing a by a, so I'm going to subtract the exponents here. I'm going to do 4 minus 0, which is 4. So we get a to the 4th. Then I have b to the 3rd over b to the negative 3rd. And once again, I'm going to subtract those two things. 3 minus negative 3 is 6. So b to the 3rd over b to the negative 3rd is b to the 6th. And then we have c to the negative 4th over c to the 3rd. Again, I'm dividing two things that have the same base. So I subtract their exponents. Negative 4 minus 3. Negative 4 minus 3 is negative 7. Now this would be fine and well. We've simplified this, but they want no negative exponents. And there is a negative exponent now in our expression here. That's 3 times a to the 4th times b to the 6th times c to the negative 7th. This has a negative exponent. Whenever we want to get rid of a negative exponent, we do 1 over c to the 7th, and it becomes positive. Kind of shortcut to that is just that whenever we see something with a negative exponent, we make our expression a fraction, and then we move what had the negative exponent to the denominator of the fraction. So notice the 3, the a, and the b all stay in the numerator, and the c to the 7th moves to the denominator, but when that happens, the 7 becomes positive. So this is our simplified version without negative exponents. And number 3, we have negative 3x to the 0 times 2x squared y. This is a little confusing, possibly because there are parentheses, and we're not maybe sure what to do inside the parentheses, but all this says here is what we see here. We're just multiplying everything together. Even though there are parentheses, every single operation in this problem is multiplication. So we essentially have negative 3 times x to the 0 times 2 times x squared times y. Everything here is multiplication. It's just written in a way that looks a little different and looks like it might not be multiplication, or we got to do some other things first, but it is all multiplication. That's what's happening here. Now when we rewrite it in this way, it maybe become a little bit easier because we see some multiplication now that we can do. We can do negative 3 times 2. I know what negative 3 times 2 is. It's negative 6. And if I have x to the 0 times x squared, I'm multiplying two things that have the same base, so I add their exponents. And 0 plus 2 is 2. And then we have a y hanging out. and there's nothing to multiply that by, so we're just going to leave it. So this is what we get. The negative 6 is from negative 3 times 2. The x squared is from x to the 0 times x squared. And then the y is just hanging out. To write this a little bit more algebraically appropriate, we can take out those times signs and just write it as negative 6x squared y, and this would be our answer.